Hey, kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to another edition of Big Hairy News. Chewy's just rebooting his computer. He will be back momentarily. How are you all? Doing good? Doing well? Hope you're doing well. Hope you're having a good day. Hope you had a good weekend. Good weekend? Good weekend if you're a rugby fan. Good weekend if you're a rugby fan from Auckland and Otago. Very nice. Or Southland as well, actually. Highlanders and the Blues did really well. Very, very, very long time. Whilst we wait for Chewy to come in, I'm going to do a little test of some sound here to make sure you guys can hear it in the background, because I know it's working because I haven't had a chance to do it with Chewy, so I'm just doing it now. A little bit of chill in the background there, just so you can hear it. I think that's long enough to play. And oh, there we go. I heard a beep. I think I heard a beep. I heard a Chewy.
I can hear it.
He is. You could hear it? You hear that?
I can hear it. It was there.
Okay. Very, very good. How are you, sir?
Not too bad. Not too bad.
We've got quite
final week of Bachelor Life. So
what top are you wearing? Did we not? Oh. And guess what else, people? What's the one thing that people have asked us to get done for the last year? The one product.
G-strings.
That's it. Cups and mugs on the way. Mugs on the way. Coffee mugs on the way.
Mugs and pots.
Yep. So I'm working on that. It's a bit different because we obviously are a very small sort of setup here for people. You guys know this if you're regulars, but if someone happens to be lurking for a first time, we don't really have the bankroll to go and buy out all the t-shirts and stuff. So you guys order them first, we do a drop, we then order them, and then you get them. So I've had to get a little bit stacked up because you can't do that with mugs. So I have to order a whole bunch of them and pay for them, and then I'll sell them to you guys and to your friends. And I think they'd make a fantastic any day of the week present. Wouldn't you think, Chewy? A fantastic. If it ends in a Y, it's worth giving. Like if the day ends with a Y, you should celebrate it by getting one of the mugs when they come through. That's what I think.
Would it be a replacement for my favorite Adventure Time mug?
Maybe.
I think it would.
Speaking of t-shirts and stuff, though, in my hot little hand here, a whole bunch of tickets, which were at the courier today, and they're coming out to you, including Rachel. You know who you are. Who we've had this whole time. We've only ever had one shirt go walkabout, like just disappear in the post, never to be seen again. And so we did all of the merch from this last drop, plus one of the blue buffer t-shirts for Rachel, and we got that sent out as well. So there you go. So that's what we are. I think before we start, we do have to have the obligatory look at the weekend light show. This was from my deck, Chewy.
Nice.
Not bad. Yeah, it's pretty good,
you did well with that one.
Yeah, and I mean, I've heard about Auroras and all those sorts of things. A lot of people talk about going like out to Tomahawk for non-Dunedinites. Tomahawk is kind of a beach on the southern parts of Dunedin, looking towards Antarctica or down that way, and you have to go to places that are really dark, and you get to see. I'm in the middle of suburbia. I'm basically at sea level. We're about 40 meters above sea level, and as you can see down here, the lights are that's a power pole in the neighbour's property. They're all on. There you go. So it's not like it's not like we're being hidden from the light pollution there, and we've still got that kind of result. That's actually looking towards you, Chewy, isn't it? Looking up over towards you guys. So yeah, it was pretty spectacular.
So just to give you an idea, I've been out Aurora hunting before, and usually it's all about getting your camera set up and pointing in the right direction and hoping that it's right, because you can't really see it with the naked eye. From my front gate, could see the pink glow to the south. The naked eye with no camera. So I immediately got in my car and completely flubbed it. I got all the wrong settings, and all of my photos look washed out and horrible, and that's why I haven't posted any.
Dude,
but I was talking
that's just my iPhone. There's no camera. That's just the iPhone.
Yep, absolutely. It's done a great job. I was talking to a fella who knows this stuff really well, and he said that this is there hasn't been a geomagnetic storm this bananas for
Mm.
100 years.
Yeah.
And there's photos all around the world. Like people could see the aurora in Germany. It's just nuts. And the lucky few that were flying around that time got an even better look at it.
Did we talk to them on this show? I've had a conversation with someone who runs flights, and when the aurora comes, they leave from Dunedin and they head south, and they fly to see it from the air. No, look, I mean, I was fascinated. I didn't realize how big it was. I did some kind of goofy tweet in the weekend about, I think the Mayans got it wrong by 12 years, but no. But when I got up the next day, I saw an item from CNN about the aurora in America, and then an item from the BBC about the aurora. So it was really like a worldwide event that was seen from all over the globe, parts of countries all over the globe. It was fascinating, and I'm so glad I saw. My kids actually ran off the deck. They said, "Dad, have you seen the sky?" And I'm like, "Oh shit, that's right." Went out, just held the iPhone on the decking railing so it would be steady. Just hit the button, held it still, finished it, and that's how I got them. So yeah, very cool. I also want to do one more thing. This is a little side note. This will be a story we follow through, but it's a little pithy tweet I put out today. Because did you see, Chewy, that food prices have seen their first monthly rise in 3 months? So my position is this, right? To be consistent, this government has been taking credit for downward pressure on food prices. So therefore, they got to take responsibility for food price increases. Is that fair? Or, as I said, pardon the pun, are they going to try and have their cake and eat it too? Because if you're taking credit for them going down, then you've got to take responsibility for them going up. And I know people are now going to say, oh, it's still a hangover from Labor. Well, if this is a hangover from Labor, then the prices of food going down were a hangover from Labor. You can't have it both ways. You can't do that old adage of, how they talk about capitalism privatizes losses and publicizes. They privatize profits and they publicize. I can't think of the word.
Socialize their losses.
Yeah, it's a bit the same. They're going to take credit for the good and they're going to blame Labor for the odd. So anyway, lots to look at tonight. Lots going on. A couple of conversations from Q&A. One with Ayesha Verrall, and a terrible performance by Mark Mitchell.
I'm glad that we're going to talk about that. I watched that whole thing yesterday. Oh my God.
Yeah. And look, I use the word authoritarian. And the reason I use that word was at a part of that conversation, he didn't basically say, he literally said, we don't have to listen to advice. We got voted in to do what we're going to do. It's like nothing else. It's for like, we are in charge here. We got put here to do a job and we're going to do it. Although there's another interesting part of this conversation where he tries to go, I'm not speaking on behalf of all New Zealanders. Hang on. You've just spent the past 18 months going, New Zealand wants. And when something bad comes back, well, no, we're not speaking on behalf of all New Zealand. Anyway, I'm not keeping my powder dry, am I? What else we're going to talk about? Also, Karen Plunket is, maybe we should start with Karen. That's a bit funny at the start, isn't it? Should we start with Karen?
Yeah, go on.
With Karen. All right, we'll start with Karen. So me and Chewy got all a bit giddy on Friday afternoon. Got a whole bunch of messages from people through Twitter Army, the platform formerly known as Twitter, about a name check from Karen. How exciting! Nice. How exciting that we got a name check from Karen. I think the truth is, someone's been living in his head rent free for quite a long time. I have been informed, and I do know how much he hates the name Karen. Hates it. But he was talking on Friday about a protest against Israel done by a young man who has a halal meat app telling Muslims where to get halal meat from. And, it was a boycott thing, and he didn't do a particularly good job. He named Vogels as someone to boycott, and it was proven. It's been said that the person he named didn't have Israeli ties, yada, yada, yada. But then, of course, what Karen's done is Karen has turned, as we've always said, criticism of Israel to criticism of the Jewish faith. And then, of course, has shown his whole ass by trying to squash this man's free speech. Because remember, in Karen's world, it's free speech as long as I agree with it. It's what woke means is anything I disagree with. So speaking of authoritarians, that was old Karen. So we'll play a bit of this. And, I think we're going to have to turn this into a drop at some stage, Chewy. But this is the start of the conversation when he was talking about the massive problem that there is with this young man and his app.
Now, the story that is published in the Post has a picture of the guy who runs the website, and he looks, spends a lot of time in his mum's bedroom and a bed. He looks a bit like that guy, Pat Brittenden from Big Hearing News.
Name check.
To be honest.
I got to say as well, he actually gave the show name out. Didn't do it, just like a name check. It was perfect. Thanks, Karen.
And it quotes our good friend and regular on the platform, Juliet Moses, the spokeswoman for the New Zealand Jewish Council. And she simply says it is anti-Semitic and I can't see any other way to look at it. Well, I agree with you. I agree.
We'll show you what this is. Whether you agree or disagree, right or wrong, there was a person supporting Palestine and Gaza by wanting to boycott Israeli products. And to say it's anti-Semitic, quote, and I can't see it any other way, speaks volumes as to potentially the messages that are needing to be put out on this platform. To say, like, if you don't want the Israeli soccer team to win, then you're anti-Semitic. If you don't want the Israeli business to win, then you're anti-Semitic. If you think people should stop using this, So we'll play a bit more of this and we'll get to it. I'm going to show you some of the stuff that he's badgering on about as well.
I agree with you, Julia. And as much as this website, Halal Kiwi, has absolutely no reach, the guy who's a computer programmer, his only advertiser is himself. It's a moment, and it's a bit pathetic. It's a bit rabbit hole radio-ish really. But I think the trend that it might suggest is really concerning.
What trend is that, Karen?
And gosh, this probably goes against my basic philosophy. I think this is a point where regulation and authorities do need to step in and say, no, you cannot do this. We cannot live in a country where you suggest boycotting or damaging people commercially because of their faith.
We should be living in a country where the state can step in and stop protest. Now, don't get it twisted. Don't get it twisted. Not against the Jewish faith, against Israeli product and business. Now, to be honest, I'm not even interested in having a debate or a conversation around, is a boycott a good idea? What I want to do is show you Karen showing his whole ass. And I'm sorry about the visual imagery that might have come with that for a split second. But he wants the state to regulate speech of someone protesting what Israel is doing in Gaza. That's what he just said, Joey.
Also, he wants to mess with the free market. Like, if people don't want to buy a product because of where it's from, well, apparently you can't know where it's from. You can't make your decisions based on that. Oliver. I'll call him by his name. Oliver.
Ollie.
Little Ollie can't hold a coherent position to save his life. The fact that here we are, 6 months into this, and he's still coming down on the side of an authoritarian Israeli regime that is carpet bombing civilians, women, children, all of that sort of stuff. And he's still worried about someone with, by his own admission, has a tiny reach and a tiny, and suddenly that's enough for him to call on the government to step in. What the hell?
Hey, look, I guess the only problem for Karen now is, that he's happy that those woke Labourites got out, because maybe they would have crushed the neck of the person. Not these free speech people, not these David Seymours. They're all free speech. They wouldn't do that, would they?
I'm glad you brought up the woke word. This is bad. He loves go woke, go broke, which is a boycott. Yeah. It is a call for a boycott.
Yes. Yes, and that's the other thing. Look,
I mean, how does he trip over? How does he stay upright without tripping over his own divergent positions on shit? I do not know.
Here's the thing, right? And this is what these kinds of, and I'm using people in the loosest possible sense when I'm talking about Karen. The only reason free speech needs to be protected is for the most abhorrent speech. Now, if Karen was right, which I don't believe he is, but if he was right about this gentleman's views, then those are the views that you need to have free speech for. Because you don't need to protect free speech when it's all love and mung beans and everybody gets on well. You need to protect it when it is the worst, most offensive tweet. But he comes across a very, very minor, I'm going to show you a very, very minor case of what he deems personally offensive. And all of a sudden, free speech goes out the window and the fucking government needs to regulate it. Just like that. Shoom. Over the most minor part of it. Look, I'll even show you it now. I was going to do it the other way around, but I'll show you it now. So this is the app. I don't know. It's on the PC. It doesn't work. And there was a boycott list there, which seems to be taken down if I click on it. You know, I don't know too much about it. Oh, no, has it come back? Okay, there's a boycott list. Oh, so there is a boycott list there. Okay, that wasn't coming up before. So there's some businesses that this person says is connected to Israel only, getting money. I don't know, whatever. And this is a very, very, very good-looking young man. I think this is the incredibly attractive, very, very, very good-looking young man. I'll play you a bit of his message, right? Because he's talking about what he's trying to do and the Israel-Gaza situation.
Boycotting is one of the very small things that we can do to support the people of Palestine.
The Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions, or BDS movement, was launched in 2005 as a way to protest Israel's treatment of Palestinian people. The movement encourages people and governments to refuse to financially support Israel or the companies that support it by...
Notice the word Israel there, not the Jews, Israel.
Divesting, withdrawing or refusing to invest. Sanctions, restricting imports and exports. And boycotting, not buying products made in Israel or by companies that support Israel. Since Israel's bombardment and invasion of Gaza following the October 7th Hamas attack, the BDS movement has increasingly become a key way New Zealanders have protested Israel's actions. Mohammed Suleiman.
He is such a good-looking dude. I mean, I just think, you know, if I swung that way, I'd be all up on that.
Is the creator of Halal Kiwi, an app that allows consumers to check if a product is halal. He has become a major driver of the boycott movement in New Zealand since adding an Israel boycott list to the app at the start of 2024.
So who to include? There are multiple factors. The first thing, of course, the most obvious one is anything that's made in Israel. Other stuff would be the companies that support Israel one way or another, especially those who support the military. The third grade would be anything that has any economy in Israel, or like maybe their products are being sold in Israel, or if they have some like connection to Israel one way or another. The app before the boycott feature had around 3,000 people who downloaded it. Currently, we have around 9,000 people who have downloaded the app. So I would say the reaction is good, and it's increasing every single day.
There you go. So there's the gist of it anyway. So I wanted to put that out there. And one of the, I mean, like, I'm not even going to have a debate with you about, do you want to support that or not? It's like, because this is about the hypocrisy of that side that says criticism of the IDF or criticism of Israel is anti-Semitic. We've shown it the whole way. And look, the reason I've been laughing so much, what Chewy's saying, is the ludicrous nature of this bloviated piece of crap who's being free speech and Jonathan Ailing and free speech and this and that and free speech and I don't know, this and that and my rights and your rights and the right to speak. And then as soon as something comes up, you have to wonder if there's something a bit deeper to where his position is right now, Chewy. Maybe some divestment from Mr. Plunket. Maybe. Just speculating. Don't know. As soon as it's something that comes up that presses back in the smallest way, it's, we need the government to regulate this speech and we need legislation around it. I mean, holy shit. How can anyone believe that? How can anyone accept that? And there was a fair bit of pushback on the YouTube video, for fairness. But I've got a couple other things, Drew, but you jump in, mate.
Yep. No, I've got a couple of things here. Like, this is the thing, that any criticism of Israel leads to it being anti-Semitic, but we're happy to lump everybody in Gaza as part of Hamas and deserves collective punishment. This sort of stuff from Ollie is just, it shows how easy it is to descend into an authoritarian point of view.
Totally.
You know, he doesn't think it. On the boycott side of things, I got one of these. Someone in Dunedin was handing these out. Boycott for beginners. And it goes through every brand that has links to Israel. And I have been referring to this a lot. And it is a big link. It is a big list. Like Starbucks, McDonald's, Burger King, Pizza Hut, Domino's, brands of cat food and dog food, Chemist Warehouse, Amazon, BP, Caltex, SodaStream. SodaStream's a good one, actually. Do you know where they plunked one of their factories?
No.
In an occupied territory.
Of course they did.
The Israelis took it off the Palestinians, and then SodaStream built a factory there. So that's fun. But yeah, BDS and these little boycott for beginners guides, really, really good. If you do want to get involved with a boycott, like I just can't balance that whole thing of like, oh, I could really go for some McDonald's. It's an easy, convenient lunch. But it being aligned with the Israeli regime and carpet bombing civilians, suddenly I'm not hungry anymore.
Yeah.
Apparently, the government should step in and regulate and make me buy fast food from an international corporation. Thanks, Ollie.
Look, it's almost so ridiculous. It's funny. Like, it's so away from everything else he pretends to follow. You have to, okay, Occam's razor, right? Occam's razor is this theory that they use in court a lot, where they say the most logical conclusion is more often than not the right conclusion. The correct way to think about Occam's razor is the fewest number of assumptions to get to a conclusion. And if I was going to use Occam's razor on what Karen's up to at the moment, it's going to come down to who's helping him a little bit. That's my Occam's razor. I'm not saying it's right. I've got no idea. I'm going to play you the last part of this though as well. So this is where he goes, it should be stopped. And this is where he starts to import his xenophobia to his far right audience about immigrants. All comes out, Joey. It all comes out. Here we go.
I think he needs to stop, or to be honest, he needs to be stopped.
Whoa.
Jesus.
Exactly. What message
Come
is
on,
that?
man.
So remember, we've said this lots before about Fox News. When a disturbed person or an unbalanced person hears that message, what can come from that? Not suggesting it's going to, not making it, but what can come from it? He needs to stop or be stopped.
I think he needs to stop, or to be honest, he needs to be stopped. Because it is anti-Semitic, it is hateful, and it should not be permitted in New Zealand or anywhere else. And I really
should not be permitted. Protest.
Wow.
Basically telling people vote with your dollar. He's basically taking a capitalistic approach to protest. Vote with your dollar, people, is what he's saying. According to Karen, should not be allowed in New Zealand. Authoritarian? Free speech? What the fuck?
really worry, and I've talked about this week earlier, I really worry we're going to import a lot of stupidity and racism and hate from overseas. You look at what is happening in those universities in the United States.
You mean like all the prayer meetings and stuff that university lecturers are protecting their kids from, and they're getting attacked from supportive of Israel. Those things, all those incidents like that, you know.
And it is absolute madness. It is hatred and madness, and we got to stop it. So I say to Halal Kiwi, grow a brain, and perhaps develop a heart and empathy, and stop being hateful, anti-Semitic, Nazi in this.
And did you get that last bit? We've got to play that, because remember, this is also the group that says, how dare you call us Nazis? Don't go bandying those kinds of words around. In the space of one conversation, again, it flips to the opposite.
Nazi in this country. And I'm not saying this because you're a Muslim or anything else. I'm saying this because your actions and your behaviours are not the New Zealand way.
So there you go. There's a bunch of dog whistles there. Not the New Zealand way, importing things from overseas. These are all, and I know you guys are smart enough to get it, but when you pass this on to your racist Uncle Bob so he can get it, these are all dog whistles to the far right who want white supremacy and who don't want immigration. And it's actually a really scary little snippet out of his show. It's actually quite scary because what he said in there is this person shouldn't be able to protest. It's anti-Semitic. It should be regulated. Get the government involved. It should be stopped or someone should stop it. It shouldn't be allowed in New Zealand. And we don't want to see this kind of stuff being immigrated here from other countries. It's quite shocking. It's quite shocking.
Ollie's got such a strong grasp of history. Famously, one of the worst things that the Nazis did was boycott Jewish businesses. They just stopped there, I guess. Yeah. I mean, I know he is just discarded custard skin that drifts into our lives every now and then.
Yeah.
But this is egregious even for him.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's the point.
Like, I don't know even if it's him being like, is he aware of it? Does he know that what he's doing is just basically crypto-fascist shit?
Yeah,
But,
that's another good question.
like, it's a massive overreaction for someone calling for a boycott. He's never reacted this way to anybody else calling for a boycott.
In fact, as you said before, sometimes he may, and I did do a little bit of looking around about it, he may. Now, I actually think, to be fair, when people were trying to boycott Spark because of what Chanel Lel had done, him and Jonathan Ailing said that you shouldn't boycott it. But as you have said, the go woke, go broke, there are often underlying subtexts talking about let's hope this fails without maybe a overt call to let's help it fail.
And like, look, let's look at what Ollie's been able to do with his audience before as well. He's been able to very much focus his audience in a single action in a direction directed at a person before. Yep. He did that with Shalil. He's done that with several other people. He weaponizes his audience. And in this case, he's picked on one individual, trying to use what resources he has to push back against an epic genocide against a particular people on the other side of the world. And Ollie thinks that this is somehow an existential threat to this country, that this guy's added a boycott list to his app. Come on, man. Yeah. What the hell?
I almost feel like he needs, it sounds a strange thing to say, but he needs to be better. Like he either needs to be better as a human being or he needs to be better as a broadcaster and not be so obvious in his hypocrisy. Like if you want to play the game, be smarter, but actually just be better as a human being. I want to say one other thing as well. Here's an example of some of the messages that were in the posts that were underneath the video we just watched. Here's one that I've taken out, not necessarily of context, it's not necessarily representative, but these are the kinds of people who Ollie used to attract. And then remember the Right Family Foundation told him to get away from the cookers. And now we started heading back towards them because, got to get that green. Says this is a comment. I'm not putting it up because I don't want to show you the person's name, but it says this. I get a lot of flack for suggesting this, but a theory states that Christchurch attack was a deep state setup. So when mass migration from a certain part of the world starts, people don't question it and will push back on any other citizens expressing concern over it. There you go. Welcome to the the platform's audience in part. So,
yeah, some of the country's most unhinged people, and we still have legitimate politicians deciding that they want to talk to that audience.
Yeah,
that they'll go on his show.
Yep.
Just and I like it. Well, why would you? Why would you stoop to going on that man's show?
Well,
just to underline a couple of things before we go on.
Yeah,
I'm sure everyone here is going to agree and realize that there is nuance and shades of grey in the world, but criticizing the Israeli regime and the actions of the IDF isn't an attack on all Jews everywhere. It also doesn't give Hamas carte blanche to do its horrible shit either. It is just deciding that the reaction that Israel took to the actions of Hamas is by an order of magnitude out of all proportionality, and is murdering hundreds of thousands of unrelated civilians who are majority children. And if that means, and I've seen a couple of comments in the chat that you go, oh shit, SodaStream's part of that? Fuck. Well, then you can go to a New Zealand company called O Bubbles and get their canisters instead of SodaStream. Oliver hates that you've got an option, by the way. And if the Bluebird thing rocks your world, well, I've got good news for you. You can go and buy some of New Zealand's best chips. Look for the Heartland ones. They're made in Timaru, and they are the best chips I have ever had.
They are the bee's knees. When I used to eat chips.
But yes, as part of the free market, it's good to have choices. And sometimes you can choose things that aren't part of a genocidal regime.
Do you want to get to those super chats? I've just realized there's something that I haven't queued up that I want to queue up.
Uh-oh. Pat's fucked it up.
So
I've got a pad for time.
You go and do that. I'm going to turn my mic off so I can hear what I'm setting up.
Cool.
Oh, no, I can't do that, actually. All right, you just put up do some super chats, and I'll just find an approximate place.
So,
found it.
We asked for people to do their homework over the weekend. Who watched a Hikoi? Mr. Arveds did his homework. Watched a Hikoi on Friday. Absolutely.
Why didn't you tell us about it?
Isn't it? Isn't it excellent?
Have you watched it?
Yes. Yes. You're right.
Did you get moist around the eyelids at any stage?
Oh, I did indeed. And it was just quite confronting for me personally to know, shit, this was going around and I just didn't really notice it at the time.
Yeah.
Aware of the fact that there was a debate really sliding off me, and this is just how I was at the time, of the injustice and the hurt of it all. But oh, by Christ, it comes through in that documentary. It is excellent.
Yeah.
Oliver, please, sir, may I have some more racism, Plunket? Absolutely. Oh, that's Arvids again. Thank you, sir. Pander to the anti-woke and go bust. Yes, the platform is slowly doing that. Or maybe not even so. Medium speed. Citizen Gold says, hey, Ollie, we don't need to import the racism. We have you. Peter Sam here. We have a race relations commissioner to address actual racism if there was an issue here. Sadly, there has been anti-Semitism in New Zealand, generally from quarters that aren't marching for peace. Yeah. Correct.
Yeah. No, what was I watching over?
Real anti-Semitism.
That Piers Morgan conversation with, Cornel West and Cenk Uygur. One of the points that came out of there so closely to me is you guys, he was speaking to Piers Morgan, are thinking all the ones who are asking for peace, who are, protesting for peace, who are wanting people to stop dying, are apparently the bad guys. And the ones who are dropping the bombs are apparently the good guys. It's like, and look, we've said it before, we'll say it again, there's no good guys in this other than the innocent civilians. On both, obviously, mostly in Gaza, where there's 30,000+ of them who have been bombed to death, but there are innocent civilians in Israel as well who have died at the hands of Hamas, and it's the innocent civilians who are always the ones that are the victims in this.
Oh, and of course, recent news, right? The whole idea of going after Hamas was to free the hostages. Hamas at the end of last week offered the hostages, and Netanyahu said no.
Hostages were offered on the 8th or 9th of October.
Yeah, they've been offered multiple times.
Yep.
At every stage, that's been declined by Netanyahu. So his whole charade of it's about the hostages, it is not. It is about Netanyahu putting himself up as the strong man. It is about his image of defending Israel from an outside aggressor. It is from the playbook of dictators and despots that you need an external enemy. Hell, it's what Hitler did He aimed that at the Jews.
And remember, if anyone ever tells you that this is the only way to get rid of Hamas, right? This is the only way to do it. Just ask them. So if they found that there was a Hamas cell in the center of a Jewish city, do you think they'd come in and bomb like that? Or would they find another way? I suspect they'd find another way, Chewie. So don't believe the bullshit around this is the only way. Is there one more there from Jackson? And then we'll play on the next one.
Yep, Jackson Media there. Plunket, welcome to the world's worst human league. Absolutely. I think it should be named the Oliver Plunket Memorial. Worst person in the world table.
So we need to get a little, maybe we said this last time when we got some fantastic photos around what's the purple guy from McDonald's called? Begins with G.
Oh, Grimace.
We got some Grimace shots.
Maybe then we got a white Grimace made of discarded testicle skin with Luxon's face on that haunts my dreams.
But that's good. Maybe we should get our graphic designers out there onto making us an award that we can award the Sean Plunket something or other worst person in the world, and someone each week can win it.
I also had a thought, going back to classic Top Gear, when they had like the little lap records that their guests set. And they put it on
in the reasonably priced car.
Yeah, we should do that, but for really shitty humans.
Okay, and we can have okay. That sounds good as well.
Have a whiteboard with a ranking, and then when we get to the end of the year, we can give a prize, which is a bag of dog shit.
Such a good idea, bro. That is such a good idea. That is
marketing.
Such a good idea. I like it.
Get your votes in, ladies and gentlemen. We know that there's probably about 5 really early entries on the boards.
And they could have it's like when you get rated to be the world's top sportsman at that sports board you play, they can change during the year. Who's number 1 this week? Like the podcast ratings. We're number 1. We're number 7 this week. We're number 2 next week.
Here we go. It's all coming together. First of all, we need to get a list going.
Yeah.
Right. We need enough, and then we'll do a round robin.
Yeah.
We'll do a knockout
down to the finalist. Okay.
Yeah, and to BHN's worst human being of 2024 at the end of the year.
At the end of the year. So are we going to go anyone in the news? Hitler's not going to be there because he's not around. We're talking about people we've had interactions with.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe we can have.
Will they just be the front bench at National, won't it? Will it just be the front bench?
We're workshopping it live now, people. We'll have an international division and a national division.
Yeah. How could Netanyahu not win every time? Let's keep going. We don't want to give away too much of that. That's a good idea, though. I like it. We'll have the minions start working on it. And by minions, I mean me. Well, I've got a spare 5 minutes. All right. Let's have a look at this conversation. One of the conversations from this weekend. I'm really, really disappointed in the messaging from Labour. I think they're getting it really wrong. And I'm going to show you why and what they should be saying. So Ayesha Verrall was on Q&A in the weekend and getting asked about, because, the National Party has been very, very clever in marketing this idea that there are too many public servants. And not one person in the media has ever pushed back going, well, how many should there be? And why is there too many?
Yep.
No one's asked that question. They've just taken on, and, we dig on Jack Tame's interviewing, but he hasn't done it. No one's asked the question of, Luxon and of Seymour, why is it too many? But what we've heard is it's too many. So I'm going to play this for you, this first bit, and then I've actually scripted something here a little bit. I just wrote this before we came on here as to what Labour's narrative and messaging should be around this. So let's get into this. This is going to be 2 or 3 minutes of basically fumbling for an answer, getting caught up in the numbers, trying to go, well, it's per capita, it's against the labour force, it's actually the population, and it loses, the messaging gets lost completely. And I'll explain to you what it should be shortly. I'll give you an example of Ayesha Verrall in the weekend. I'm not critical of her so much, but this is a criticism of Labour in general. Their messaging is poor at the moment around this conversation.
So the government says the cuts are necessary because the public service has...
Oh, by the way,
I think that's important.
I have sped it up on purpose because I wanted it to be... Oh, what just happened there? Did I just jump? Oh, no. Is that the right number? I don't know what I just did there, but it just jumped massive. I have sped it up because, to be honest with you, it's a bit long, this one, and we don't need to hear the whole thing. I don't know how I just did that. Let's just go back to where we were. Here we go.
Unsustainably large during the time you were in government. How much has the public service increased since 2017?
The public service has grown
Oh my God, I'm having
a however, I think the key thing there is that this government is making choices to shrink the size of the public service in order to pay for its tax cuts.
Perfect messaging. Shrink the size of the public service to pay for tax cuts. Perfect messaging. That's it. That's the perfect messaging. Stage one.
Argue that there are services that New Zealanders need and depend on that are being taken away in order to fund those tax cuts, and that's a political decision.
Okay, we'll come to that in a moment. So roughly in line with the population increases. So when you say roughly in line, give me more specificity there. What do you mean?
The proportion of the employed people in New Zealand who are employed in the public service has stayed approximately the same during the time Labor was in government.
So the proportion of employed people, that means the labour force.
So they're getting caught up in the numbers here, yeah?
Yes, it does. I suppose there has, but I don't believe the age structure of the population changed substantially during that time.
Well, these numbers are absolutely critical because in assessing the growth, right? So if we look at the
No, so this is wrong. They're not essential. Because what they're doing is they're falling into Nationals, and I'll say trap, or you might say, clever messaging, is that they're only essential if you believe that there are too many public servants. Yet we haven't yet had the question asked, why are there too many? Quantify that for us. How do you know there's too many? And the answer is not because we can't afford it.
Baseline FTEs, since 2017, when Labor took office, there's been a 39% increase. Adjusted for population growth, though, the public service still increased by 25% over that time.
Jack, I don't believe that is the figures that I have seen. But in any case, I can also tell you in another way that we have a lower public service for the size of our population compared to other
per
countries.
capita. So listen, I'm actually not going to go any further. You get the idea, Chewy? The idea is very much about this population, the size of our population. We've got per capita public, and Jack's framing was all about the growth. I'll give you an example of bear with me, okay? We've got a tank of water. At the top of the tank of water, there is an outlet, okay? The tank needs to be full to the top for the outlet to get access to the water. When National comes in, they take it from being a full tank to a half full tank, yeah? The tank needs to be full because it needs to reach the outlet at the top. So Labor doubles the number, or doubles the amount of water, doubles the number of whatever, and they put it back up to a level where now it's reaching the outlet, so the tank's working again. They're not asking, is the tank working? They're just going, well, National's tank was only half as full as yours is, so that's what they're missing. So this is the answer to the question. I just jotted this down before we came on, so it might be a bit of a formed question. Labor, when they get asked questions about the numbers, they need to say something like this. National decimated the public sector under John Key. We need to get it back to a workable level. Then we increased some areas more due to COVID, which we were then beginning to decrease as COVID grew less desperate. The debate is not just about increasing in size. It's about taking the number to a workable workforce versus not, which is exactly what National is currently doing under the auspice of Labor bad. That's what they should be saying. They should be saying the tank needs to be filled to the top where it's going to work. And just because we've doubled the amount of water in there doesn't mean we're bad. It actually means they have actually dropped the level of water so low that it's not functioning. And that's what we're going to see happen.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely perfect messaging, because you look, when you're pushing back against someone else's messaging, and let's say the messaging on the right is Labor's blown out the public service. There's just too many workers. Again, they're avoiding the point of what is too many workers.
Yeah.
What is the number? Why is it too many?
Yeah.
You don't hear that. You just hear the thing. There are too many public sector workers, because that has been consistent messaging from the right since the fucking 80s.
Yep.
It's gliding on. It's always gliding on. But then Labor come in and start pushing back directly against that. They start arguing the amount of public servants and that sort of thing. Exactly what you're saying, Pat.
Yeah.
They're not giving us context. They're not giving us hard enough. They're just trying to answer what National have put out there and ACT have put out there.
Yep.
So stop responding to their messaging. Get your message squared away.
Yep. Yep. And journalists and people with access. I've emailed Ayesha Verrall's office a couple of times. We don't hear back. You know, we're not worth their time. Journalists who have access, stop just fucking going, well, there's been a 25% increase and only a 10% increase in population, because what you have to ask is, why was there a 25% increase? Was it too many? Was under National there too few? Give us some, like if I was in the department up on the 9th floor working with a Labour MP or minister, I'd be saying, what we need to do is find the research and see how the public sector was working under John Key, to then help explain why we increased the numbers, not just that we increased it, but why. So Labour bad. Labour's not doing the work for this. You guys have lost your messaging, and you're getting caught up in conversations like you're having with Jack there, which is just about numbers and trying to say per capita or versus the labour force or overall. You know, it's lost. The numbers don't matter. What matters is, like we said last week, bigger government is not better. Smaller government is not better. Better government is better. I want to know the number of public servants that gives us a better government. Is Labour too many? Is National too few? Give us the number and let's make it work better. But just talking about the numbers never addresses that question of, is it better? And that's the problem, Chewy. Right, let's move on.
Like,
Sorry, yep.
No, go.
There was some very good messaging as well in this conversation, and this is something that needed to be shouted from the rooftops before the election and wasn't.
But yeah, I think, Jack, where you're going is this difference between whether public services are delivering for New Zealanders. And I think there were multiple achievements under the Labour government. Our carbon emissions came down for the first time. We built more state houses than any government since the 1970s. We had a world-leading COVID-19 response. We lifted 66,000 children out of poverty. So there are areas that were a focus for the government where there were very good outcomes.
Great messaging. Great messaging. Yep. Should have been on every billboard before the election. Drop the ball again, Labour.
And we mobilise the public service and others around that.
So I'm interested in public sentiment around this. Do you think that New Zealanders feel that public services improved by 25% during the time you're in office?
Yeah, probably not. And that was probably reflected in the election result. So I think that is a really important area for us to be focused on. I think part of that is the really tough public sentiment we faced after COVID, but also about how we as leaders communicate about how we're changing public services and how we set ourselves realistic goals to step through. So what I'm talking about is whether or not we set a small number of still very ambitious priorities for ourselves as a government, or work on a wider set but perhaps not be able to deliver on all of them.
So there you go. That was good. That was good messaging, and those things about the achievements of Labour, as I said, as we've said before, should be on every single billboard, you know, because the other part of the conversation after that then got into talking about how many managers there were under Labour versus how many managers there are. It's all this numbers thing that they're losing it from. But the messaging that Ayesha gave there was great. It was really good, really strong. I've got one more to play to. Do you want to jump in first?
No, roll it.
Okay, so the last part of the conversation we're going to play here is questions about what will the new government's cuts lead to? Where are we going with all the cuts that are coming?
What are the
communicate about how we're changing public services?
Second time I did that. See, that wasn't me. That just jumped by itself. All right, let's go find it again. Here we go. Apologies, guys. Here we go.
What are the biggest changes that New Zealanders will notice with the new government's cuts?
Well, I think the changes to disability services, to benefits, and to the support for frontline education workers provided by workers at the Ministry of Education, those will all have impacts. Another thing I would note, Jack, is public servants, a lot of the work they do is respond to emergencies, whether that's biosecurity incursions, outbreaks and others. And I think there's been substantial cuts in those parts of the country where, those parts of the public service where that work is done as well.
So are we only likely to appreciate the scale of these cuts if we face ourselves with an unexpected crisis?
Well, I would say that some of those crises are actually quite likely and would occur across the term of government. But the others are cuts to services, $100 million stripped out of school lunches. There's a hiring freeze on in public hospitals.
I mean, they've actually expanded access to school lunches, though.
In some parts, but they've also cut for the intermediate and high school children. They've cut the value of a lunch.
They've cut the value of a lunch, but they're still going to be receiving lunches, right?
They are, but
we can quibble over the nutrition, we can quibble over the ingredients, but those children.
Yeah, but the point, and I think she's about to say this, Labor's plan was healthy school lunches, so you kind of need to include the quibble over nutrition as a part of the conversation.
Is there any child that was receiving a school lunch that will now no longer receive a school lunch as a result of these changes?
I think one of the outcomes that the program was meant to support was healthy lunches for school children, and the employment outcomes for the parents that are often cooking the lunches for schools.
Yeah, but is the purpose of that program to give kids lunch and food and nutrition, or is it to employ people?
Well, it was all of those things, and you see some of the reports that were done, did go into those other outcomes, including the employment outcomes and the health outcomes for children.
Now, just before we move on, because we weren't going to get into this too strongly, Spinoff did an article, good article today on can you
stole my thunder, Pat.
Oh, sorry, bro. Can you provide meals for teens for $3 a pop? Apparently, the government's been citing, is it Kids Can? Kids Can?
Yeah.
But Kids Can are saying they do it for $2 a meal. But the Kids Can CEO, Julie Chapman, explained that the charity has calculated that the meals it provides to early education centres, which caters to under fives, are $2 each. It provides meals for about 5,800 kids a day, and there is a long wait list. However, this food is provided more as meal kits in ingredient form. Early childhood centre staff have to actually prepare the meals, so the $2 figure doesn't take into account labour for making the food. So,
what's that, Pat? Off in the distance, I can hear my best friend, who is an early childhood teacher, screaming because someone has figured out that he doesn't have enough to do in his day. Famously, early childhood teachers have heaps of spare time, and now they're going to be putting together meals. And this is the thing. I put this on Facebook when I saw that spin-off story, right? Is that it takes on average less than a week for someone to get hold of Seymour's statement, pick up the phone and talk to a couple of people and punch holes in it so big you could drive a bus through.
Yeah.
Like, he is trying to hide behind that. Well, I've expanded it to more people. But he's also made it completely unworkable, and the figures that he's using don't stack up. And one of the things that really sticks in my craw, being an MP, he is publicly funded.
Yeah.
I want to know how much David Seymour spends on lunch, considering it's the taxpayer that's paying for it. And if it's anything more than $3, I'm going to be furious.
I did chase that when we were talking back about Bellamy's and stuff. I did stick some information. I've never done an OIO, but I did try to find out, because one of the things I wanted to know was about waste. Well, there's like a 10% wastage of the food, and like that make sure that all of those MPs eat up all of their peas on their free lunches to make sure they're not wasting any as well. But I never heard anything back.
There'd be a real good way to fix this is if they're making school kids eat their lunch, well, that's what the MPs get as well.
They get an hour. They have to sit outside. Have to sit outside on the playground.
They have
all
to
the
fucking
MPs
play with each other. I want to see David Seymour bullied so hard by the bigger kids. Oh.
In the chats, Cookie Nick is just saying, I'm assuming that means, is that one of those ones? Like, I was late or I'm on time. One of the two. I can't tell which one it is. Gareth
We're both
says,
old, Cookie. You can't use emojis. Don't know what they mean.
I think it would be great to have a BHN poll from Gareth. Twat of the week and Beard of the week have an end of season award. No, see, this is grown. We're getting it. House of M says, yeah, it's not their messaging at the moment. Labour has always been terrible at messaging. Yeah, fair enough. And actually, you know what? We're not kind of scared to say this. As much as everyone hates fucking Luxon on his TikToks and stuff, the way they did it at the last election worked. You know, it worked for them, and That's why they're the government. Well, it's maybe not the only reason, but it's a good reason. One of the reasons they're the government. So their messaging has been stronger. And you saw that because remember old Chipkins had to all of a sudden start talking about being tough on crime because that was National's point, and it was they hit the right marks for what people wanted to hear. And then Labor started following. There was nothing worse in politics than following your competition because their messaging is working. Holy mackerel!
I mean, I saw a comment on social media the other day that really sort of focused it for me. Right, is that people were discussing sentencing and prisons and all of this sort of stuff, and this guy waded in and goes, "Well, what would you think if your daughter got attacked or your home got invaded and that sort of thing? Would you want one of these soft cop, public service sentences?" And it just struck me as like, yeah, okay, if you put yourself in that suggestion, no, of course not, you'd be out for blood. But that's why we have a judiciary. It's why we have a court system, because before we had that, we had mob rule and vigilante justice, and that wasn't good. So if you want to get all emotive, yeah, we'd have public stocks in every town square of the country. It's not a way to run a thing. And there are so many studies, there's been so many investigations into crime and punishment because it's always such a big issue for every developed country. In an election, we'll start talking about crime and punishment. And one side will be going, we need to be tougher on crime. And the other guys are saying, well, it hasn't worked.
Yeah.
So we're going to try something different. And then the other guys, they're going to say, we need to build a bigger prison. And that's it. That's it. We'll just go round and round and round and round.
Yeah. Speaking of the judicial system, I'm not really looking at this tonight, but maybe earmarking it for tomorrow night. Court of Appeal overturns decision that blocked Children's Minister from Waitangi Tribunal summons. The Court of Appeal has overturned a High Court decision which blocked a summons order from the Waitangi Tribunal for Children's Commissioner Karen Shaw. It was released on Monday. So basically they've said, you got to go. But in saying all of this, Chewy, it's just gone into legislation. They're starting to debate it. And once they start to debate it, the Waitangi Tribunal can't actually talk about it. They're not allowed to. So in other words, the courts have said, you know what, we're overturning that, but they now can't call her in because it's about to be debated. So it's kind of a moot point. But we might look at that tomorrow. Look, here's something I want to show you as well. This is a real quick one for you. I was terrified when I heard how David Seymour decides difficult legislation, difficult policy choices. So you would think, Joey, like the normal person I think would think, if you have a disagreement on a policy, that you'd kind of nut it out. You'd figure it out, you'd compromise, you'd be give and take. That's not his way he does it when he gets a disagreement with a policy change. I'll play it for you. Hopefully this won't jump now. What are we on, just so I can see? About 8:17. And then we'll come back and have a chat about it.
Coalition work, but probably the biggest thing that unites us is we've just got really, really serious headwinds. So like you look at this budget we face, massively, lower tax take because the economy is slowing, massively bigger costs because there's some things the previous government didn't actually put aside money for. They sort of, nunch in a wig, said, yeah, we'll keep funding your medicines, but they didn't put the money aside. And then there's massively rising prices for everything. For we want to pay the police more, obviously, but
do they?
We also know that there's inflation in the nurses, and they could go off to Australia, and the teachers. And you put those together, you're suddenly dealing with
all of these
nearly 150,000 people that you've got to pay.
Yeah. It's a big $3 billion solvable one, isn't it?
Inflation, fiscal cliffs, and a soft economy. We've got to hang together to make this thing work and balance a budget at all.
100%. And, is the solution bringing in a lot of consultants to do that, or do you think?
Just remember, this government, including him, was basically railing against consultants. So when someone says, should we bring in consultants, what would you expect David Seymour to say?
Don't need them. Waste of money.
Get that dirty words out of your mouth, consultants.
We've got the nous and the know-how here.
You need consultants if you're planning to do more stuff. It doesn't take much to do less. And I think that's a really important lesson. I mean, I learnt that to some extent in ACT's campaign. I think government should be learning this lesson through its deficits and its expenditure. Oftentimes I have a conversation, because I'm part of the budget team, and that people will say, well, we're not quite sure if we can save money there this year, maybe we could review it for next year. I say, here's another idea. If you don't know, let's just stop. And if anyone misses it, we can fund it again next year.
So when you're looking at policy decisions, when you look at funding, if you don't know, if you've got a hard decision, Chewy, if you can't quite figure it out, let's just stop it. And let's see if in 12 months anyone's noticed that we've stopped it. Literally what he just said.
Jesus
if you don't know,
Christ.
just stop. And then we'll see if anyone picks up on it or misses it next year. And I bet you what, Chewy, I bet you most of them won't even notice. Well, what? Because they're all dead or whatever you've stopped funding for. I heard that on, I don't even know what this podcast is. I should give them, it's called James Lachlan, whatever that is. But I heard that while I was walking the dog and I was like, hang on, what? I went back. If you don't know, here's another solution. How about we just stop? And if people miss it, we'll relook at it next year. That's Seymour's decision-making process.
It is.
Most people are like,
terrifying.
if you don't know, let's dig into it. Let's get
some
more experts
evidence.
in. Let's get some research and evidence around it, and then we can make an informed decision. His thing is, if you don't know, let's stop. Just think of the funding holes he will create with that kind of policy mindset. It's terrifying.
Okay. So here's an example. We love our analogies here. I'm a new motorist with my new car.
Yep.
I believe that driving on bald tires could be bad. All the experts say that it is, but I haven't personally found that to be true. I don't know. So I'm going to drive on bald tires and see if I notice. Same energy, David. Arvid, you're knocking it out of the park with the chats tonight, my friend. Let's start funding Seymour and see if anybody misses them.
Yeah, because I don't know. So we should just stop.
I don't know. A lot of people say that we wouldn't miss them, but we don't. We won't know until we defund David Seymour. Oh, is that our next T-shirt?
More of them.
BHN, defund David.
The Seymour guy is the worst person in the world, says Peter. Frosty's comment here. We need an Oscars for the best and worst beards of the year at the end of each year, not beard exclusive, as Karen wouldn't be on the list otherwise.
Are we just going to call the awards the Beardies?
The Beardies. Nice. The basement Beardies. The Nick Beards. It could be the Nick Beards. The Beardy Awards. All right. Lots of things. Hey, we're going to keep trucking because it's we've got one which might be the biggest news story of the week, but there's certainly a bit of footage to go with this, to do with Mark Mitchell being on Q&A in the weekend. And it was a bit of a shit show, actually. There was a whole, but
I urge people to go and watch this whole thing. It is fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
This is a man that's in charge of things.
Let's start with this first clip. And the question's pretty easy because, their promise before the election is New Zealand will be safer. New Zealand will be safer. New Zealand will be safer. And we are in our capable hands. Okay. So does New Zealand feel safer?
Me on this morning.
A series of brazen jewellery store robberies, huge gang convoys in places around New Zealand, and an extraordinary shooting in the middle of Ponsonby Road.
Yeah.
6 months since the election. Do New Zealanders feel safer?
Well, obviously these targeted jewellery...
He has taken the Christopher Luxon school of not answering questions.
Customers as well. That incident that we saw on Ponsonby Road, again, very unsettling for the, for the community up there. What I'd say is this:
have we
as
got
the
to an
incoming
answer yet?
national government, we have got a very big program around public safety. We've been very clear about the fact that we're putting victims and public safety at the heart of what we're doing. We've got legislation in front of Parliament right now. Most of that will be coming into act around November of this year. The police have responded really well to my letter of expectation. We were very clear. I released that publicly. I said that we're going to clamp down on the gang in our communities. I saw the misery.
Guys, I'm sorry, it's done it again. It's done a massive jump. So I'm going to go back. I don't know why it's doing this. It's giving us a bit of grief tonight. My apologies. Not sure why. I didn't touch anything there. It just jumped.
Responded really well to my letter of expectation. We were very clear. I released that publicly. I said that we're going to clamp down on the gangs. No more having the gangs running around, taking over public spaces, intimidating members of the public, taking over our provincial towns, as we saw in Apotiki and Coromandel town, where kids couldn't go to school. Because gangs had taken over. The police have been very effective. They put more resources into that. They're using their eagle. They're suppressing those gang runs. And the feedback that I'm getting from the communities and the public has been very positive.
So it's positive, but 6 months, I appreciate it's only 6 months since the election.
Yep.
Do you think New Zealanders as a whole feel safer?
I don't think, I think obviously there's still a lot more work to do because you're reading...
Is that a no? Do you think, I mean, it's 6 months again?
Well, look, I can't speak for every Kiwi, but what I can say is...
Which is actually, we can't let him get away with that either, by the way. I can't speak for every Kiwi. Nicola Willis, Christopher Luxon, Mark Mitchell have spent 18 months saying New Zealanders want, New Zealanders want, New Zealanders want, New Zealanders voted for, New Zealanders want. This is what New Zealanders want. And now he's being asked an uncomfortable topic as do New Zealanders want or get. He goes, well, I don't know, I can't speak for all New Zealanders. You can't have it both ways. Cake and eat it too, Mr. Mitchell, because you can't claim again to know what citizens, what New Zealanders want for your whole campaign, and then when you get asked what the citizens want, well, I couldn't possibly hesitate to tell you the answer to that question. I'm sorry about that. This has got about 30 seconds.
Robberies, we've got to get on top of that. But the feedback that I'm getting from the public in terms of the way that we're dealing with gangs has definitely changed and is definitely positive. And by the way, even with our retail crime, there's been a 50% increase in foot patrols by our police. They're back out in the community, they're back out on the streets, they're building relationships with our shopkeepers and our retailers. They're highly visible, and I'm getting enormous positive feedback on that. And districts are running big retail crime task force, and those are proving to be very effective as well.
There you go. So there's the first clip, Joey. I've got a couple more to do. You want to jump in on any of that to start off with?
So he reckons the crackdown on gangs has been enormously successful, right?
So he says.
Instant effect.
Yeah.
Maybe not so much. Gang members ripped burnouts at Auckland Memorial, 4 arrests. Doesn't look like it's stopping shit, mate.
But that's what he's going to say. He's going to say, yeah, there was arrests. It's got how he's going to try to defend it that way as well, by the arrests.
It's for cops on the beat. I don't know. Anecdotally, which is the only way that this government decides that anything's of note, I haven't seen a police foot patrol in years.
He actually, at some stage during this interview, says, I basically go by my own anecdotal evidence. I was a police officer for 14 years and I know. That literally comes out in this conversation. So let's keep going with it. This part of the conversation is around, are you really backing police? And I wanted to play this because congratulations to Jack. He asked the question that every interviewer needs to ask at any stage ever to this government when there's a financial question. And that's, yeah, but what about that $3 billion to landlords, right? And this is where it starts to go downhill really seriously. He honestly tries to sell the point that, police officers are renters, so this is good for them, rather than we can give them lots of extra pay.
Talked about the fiscal constraints, and obviously governing is about choices. Those changes to landlord taxes that your government announced worth $2.9 billion, what message do you think it sends to police when in the same week that you announce almost $3 billion in tax changes to landlords, you insist you don't you insist that you don't have any money for them for anything better than what they describe as an insulting pay rise?
We levelled the playing field because rents in this country have gone through the roof under Labor. And by the way, police officers, a lot of them rent homes, and we don't want their rents going up. And that's why we've taken steps to make sure that people aren't...
Yeah, do you get that, Chewy? So the reason they're giving $3 billion to landlords is because police officers rent homes. That's why. Although in saying that, we haven't seen any evidence or any results with downward pressure on those rents yet, have we?
Fucking damn right. So yeah, his whole argument here is we don't need to give police pay rises if we bring down their rents and their grocery bills. And guess what? Neither of those fucking things is happening either. But landlords, their margins are getting fatter. It's something you didn't need to do.
So here's here we go. I'll just bring this story up off the top. So following his logic, this is now a reason for them to go after the banks, because some police officers have mortgages. And we're being told now about the number of struggling Kiwis pleading with banks for understanding, looking for mortgage holidays. So if he's going to use the excuse that some of police officers are rentals, so we're not going to give them money, we're going to put downward pressure on their rent, what are you doing for the fuckers that are owning their own homes, Mark Mitchell? What are you doing for those guys? Because we can use the same logic and go, cool, now go after the banks. But I bet they won't, Joey. I just bet they won't.
I mean,
what message do you think it sends police? When you say we don't have any more money for a better offer. This is the best offer we can put you. But in literally the same week, you say, and here's $2.9 billion in tax change for the benefit landlords.
So we're making changes through the economy, Jack, so that so we start reducing costs. We want to reduce inflation. We want to reduce interest rates.
Imagine if we put that $2.9 billion straight into police pockets.
We want to stop rents going through the roof, because a lot of police officers, nurses and teachers rent their homes, and we actually want to stop those rents from increasing. So do you think there's a whole range of...
So just think about that. If rents went down, like in this Narnia hypothetical parallel universe he lives in, by 10%, and they're saving $50, $80 a week versus a $10,000 pay raise. But, you know, much better off, he thinks.
As a government that we're taking to try and provide some fiscal relief to Kiwis.
Do you think then that police would prefer for those landlord changes to come in, $2.9 billion in tax changes, than for them to have a better pay offer?
Well, look, my attitude is I think police need to feel that they do have a government that backs them, and we do.
I understand. So my question though, do you think police would prefer to have $2.9 billion in tax changes benefiting landlords, or to have a better pay offer?
Well, I mean, that's something that you'd have to ask police, but as a government...
Well, given they described your pay offer as insulting, what's your sense?
But as a government, Jack, we are making a whole lot of changes in the economy.
No, I understand what you're doing, but to my question...
Chewy, you missed your opportunity. No one said they're good changes. No one said these changes are good changes.
Yeah. Sorry, Minister, to my question, what do you think police would prefer? $2.9 billion in tax changes to benefit landlords, or a pay offer that they didn't think was insulting?
Can I just have a moment?
If you answer that question.
Need a moment.
A whole fucking moment,
again, I just said to you that that's something that I cannot answer. But the answer that I can give you is this, is that as a government, we are committed to getting our economy back on track, reducing costs for people, for giving them tax breaks.
These are all points, but they're not actually answering.
But I am answering your questions. Police officers are going to get the benefit of the fact that...
Because you're literally fucking not. The question was, do you think police officers would rather have the $2.9 billion to them or to landlords? You're literally not answering the question.
We're trying to cap rentals. Police officers will get the benefit of the fact that there's going to be a tax cut.
Well, if police officers are landlords, they'll get those benefits of $2.9 billion.
Police officers will get the benefit of us trying to reduce inflation. Police officers will get the benefit of us trying to reduce interest rates. And on top of that, we have stretched ourselves as far as we can. In good faith, we've found $250 million more to go into the pay round. We've gone to paid overtime, which is the first time the police have ever had that.
If I was a cop watching this, I'd be fucking furious.
That's a 12th of the tax changes that you announced for landlords.
That is a substantive offer for us as a country. When at the moment we've come in as a new government and we're having to deal with a terrible set of books.
Blame Labor. Blame Labor. Blame Labor.
She is burning the midnight.
She's going to be with us in a couple of weeks.
Blame Labor. Blame Labor. Warning. Whoop 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 whoop. Blame Labor. I got caught. I couldn't do anything else. All the holes have been seen. So blame Labor. Blame Labor. There's a couple more to go, bro, but you go for it. Yeah, I think what you just said, but people missed it. I'll repeat it and give credit to you. If I was a police officer watching that, I would be furious. I would be furious, because he is literally, not even basically, he is literally saying police officers should be happy that we're going to put downward pressure on their rents. Haven't seen any evidence of that yet. That we're going to get inflation down, that all these things in society, rather than a pay advance that they don't find insulting. I left that bit out of the conversation. Jack Tame read out what the police said about, or the police group, lobby group, whatever, wrote about the offer, and the word insulting or patronizing was in there, sort of thing. So
yeah. It comes back on this lie that National have built, that somehow if they let landlords get some of their tax back, that their rents are going down because the landlords will be so grateful, and they will somehow turn their nose up at increased profit.
Free money.
Like every businessman ever will go, no thanks, I've already got enough profit. It just doesn't happen. The things that push prices down is increased supply in all cases. More competition, more supply, lower prices. No one wants to do that because everybody's got their retirement fund tied up in fucking housing. Not any proper investments. We're also not going after the banks. We're extracting an enormous amount of money from New Zealand every fucking quarter. We're not going after the supermarkets either for doing exactly the same thing. But the cops are going to be stoked because of this bunch of fairy dust, this bunch of unicorn farts that is National's economic policy. Oh, the rents are coming down. So now the cops are happy that they get paid bullshit for all this extra dangerous work we're asking them to do. That man, that the least inspiring person I have ever seen, is in charge of the police and corrections. That is fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
I would be scared if that man was in charge of a drinks trolley.
The other thing, though, is if the police are going to be grateful to Mark Mitchell and the National-led government because of inflation coming down, we all know that with inflation coming down, unemployment goes up. So that are they going to be happy if inflation comes down, but their partner's now lost their job, or their kids have now lost their jobs? Do you know what I mean? Like if you're gonna make the case that they're going to be happy because of this good aspect of economical results within the economy, then you got to do it all. I mean, this is a theme for tonight's show. If they're going to be happy that that inflation is coming down, are they going to be happy that there's more unemployed people? Because those two things happen together. It's an unavoidable truth.
Mate, I'll tell you what's going to happen, because this is the other thing that he's talking about. This is going to be X amount more cops going to the training college and that sort of thing. What will happen there? They'll get their passing out parade and that sort of thing. Welcome, you're a fully trained police officer now, and here's your complimentary shuttle bus to the airport and your new Victorian police uniform.
Yep.
We are now doing a recruitment drive for the Australian police. Why would you stick around if that's your leader? He in this interview, he argues against the police union. He holds himself up as someone that, I'm a policeman, I've seen all of this stuff, and then argues against the union that represents police officers, that they don't know what they're talking about. What the fuck?
I mean, very much like we said earlier, that the only reason you need to protect free speech is for the most abhorrent speech. It's sort of a bit the same as the only reason you need to have a Bill of Rights, is it's for those rights that we kind of find uncomfortable and don't like. This next part of the conversation, Jack Tame asks him if he understands that the Bill of Rights is going to be breached if you try and force gang patches off people. And he goes, yeah, it's a breach. It's like, well, okay, so where do we go with this? Let's have a bit of a look.
To my question, though, you're pursuing a law that you accept breaches the Bill of Rights?
I totally accept it. And by the way, when you've got gang members out there that don't stick to the rules like everyone else,
I wonder if Luxon's advisors heard this and just went, "Oh my God, what has he said?" So he knows this is showing behind the curtain. Breaches the Bill of Rights? Yeah, of course. No, and said so flippantly. Yeah, of course it does. No, but and what other rights are they prepared to breach to get what they want to get through, no matter what? Remember, this is not said to support abhorrent opinions or to support disgusting rights. You know, people who claim onto their rights, which is just abhorrent behaviour. But that's why you have these bills, and that's why you have these laws. You don't need to have free speech laws to protect lovely, kind speech. You have them to protect the most vile speech. You don't need to have Bill of Rights for people who all get around, you know, comfortably in harmony. You need to have the Bill of Rights when rights are impinged upon that we may not all agree with. That's why these things are needed. So you've got a group here who are outsiders in society, who are perhaps pushing their luck in society, who are doing things wrong in society. They're actually the ones that need the protection, the abhorrent views, the abhorrent people, because if we're all lovey-dovey and get on, there's no rights being breached because everyone's happy. The only time you need them is when you are going to make people unhappy. And he's so happily, flippantly saying, yeah, it's a breach. Of course it is. And then they go on.
Run roughshod over the top of people's rights.
Then they go on to justify why it's okay to breach their rights.
They're going to lose some rights. So when they want to front up and actually join society in a positive way, and do what everyone else does, and try and be proud Kiwis that actually adhere to the law, then they might get some.
I think what he means is good little boys, proud Kiwis. I think that's what it means. It's a bit like the conversation we had about Karen earlier. You know, good New Zealanders are New Zealanders that we condone their behaviour and agree with. And those are the people who don't need to worry about the Bill of Rights or free speech because they're lovely, well-behaved people. This is the juxtaposition these guys haven't quite figured out.
Some rights back.
You were changing sentencing laws so that gang membership is a more strongly weighted factor in sentencing. Can you explain to me, if I was considering joining a gang, how will that change deter me from doing so?
Sorry, so
if I was considering joining a gang, why would change
exactly?
Honestly, if any second of video ever proved the point of Mark Mitchell, it was that moment. You know, it was that moment. Let's just have a look at that again. It's a very easy question.
We now crossed to Mark Mitchell. Huh?
Why would your sentencing, your new form of sentencing, stop anyone joining a gang? That's the question. Huh?
Great question, by the way.
Sorry, so
if I was considering joining a gang, why would changing the weighting of gang membership in sentencing?
On sentencing?
Yeah, why would that deter me? Why would that put me off?
So that's one of many things that we're doing.
Yeah. So why would that put me off?
That's an aggravating factor at sentencing, you're right.
No, sorry, so to my question though, why would that, if I'm considering joining a gang, why would that put me off?
What do you reckon, what gang would Jack Tame join? What do you think? If he was going to join a gang, I mean, looking at that imagery right there, I don't know. We'll put that up the flagpole, see how it comes back.
Well, I think let me give you a classic example. There was a headline running in the media yesterday with a gang member that stood up that had committed violent offending against corrections officers, police officers and members of the public. And he got a sentence that he wasn't expecting, and his exclamation was "Holy shit!" Because he wasn't expecting to get that. So we're going to make it an aggravating factor.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're doing.
They don't want to have heavier sentences, so I think that could be something that would deter them. But on top of that, we're banning their gang patches.
What are the regulatory?
They're going to have dispute.
Okay, so this is where you see again, second time tonight, different person, the authoritarian side coming out. Jack's about to challenge him on basically what does the research says, and he goes, I don't give a fuck, we got voted in. It's a little bit scary.
Personal notices, they're going to have non-consorting orders, they're going to give the firearms prohibition orders with proper warrantless search powers. There is enormous pressure coming on gangs.
Minister, to my question, what do the regulatory impact statements say about deterrence?
In terms of
gang membership?
Well, the regulatory impact statement said that there's no clear evidence because we are obviously implementing this in our country.
So it said there's no evidence?
No, it didn't say there's no evidence.
Well, it said, I can read it, quote, no evidence that increasing the severity of punishment deters gang.
Because I have the receipts.
Membership.
Okay, so basically we've already passed legislation around gang patches. So Let's deal with that.
I'm just going with the regulatory impact statement.
Let me.
I'm talking about punishment here because this is. I'm asking about how punishment deters membership. So it very clearly, you just said this. It didn't say no.
You're talking about deterrence.
Very clearly says there's no evidence that increasing the severity of punishment deters gang membership.
So let me talk you through the first part of what you asked me on the gang pictures, right?
Can you please, just so we are clear, aware, if you're going to talk us through, can you just use really easy single syllable words for us, Mark, so we all understand what you're talking about, please?
Legislation. I took legislation through the House. It was Todd McClay's out of Rotorua, and it was based off, he was having big problems with the mongrel mob there, with violent
I'm asking about the aggravating sentence, which was my question, and I asked how that would be a deterrent.
It's just real
the regulatory impact statement that you and I have both read says there is no evidence that increasing the severity of punishment deters gang membership.
So we believe that it will be a deterrent, and I just
go. So the regulatory impact statement was wrong. Your officials were wrong.
We get all sorts of advice from officials.
And was that wrong? Was that wrong?
Well, we get all sorts of advice from
was
officials.
That wrong?
It's advice. We all decide as a government.
Here we go.
We went to the election and we got elected on the fact that we're going to clamp down on gangs and violent retail crime, and we're going to get ourselves back on track. So let me just explain, Jack. We campaigned on that.
So there's your basically the best case now for the national government is this. I can't put my fingers in my ears because I've got headphones on, but this we do what we want. Labor bad. Vote National 2026. So there it is again. It's like, but it's not even basically saying, it's literally saying we do what we want because the public put us here to do what we want. Research, regulatory impact statements, we already told you we're not going to read those. We're just going to do whatever we want. We promise to do this. We're going to do this. Don't care if all the research says it's not going to work. We think it will. Why? Well, just because we think it will. Chewy.
Personally, I think if I was the person that was advising Mark Mitchell before this interview, I would, like, if you get a tough question from Jack Tame, what I want you to do is reach down into your little panic bag that I've given you and go, what I'd like to say to you, Jack, is put a music box on the fucking desk and eventually the guy comes out the top and just do that until the interview ends. That will be better than you trying to formulate a single coherent thought. You are a bag of potatoes stacked on top of each other. It's what's the analogy? Is like, what is a turtle on top of a fence post and Mark Mitchell got in common?
You tell me.
The turtle's been elevated above where he's comfortable with, and no one knows how it happened. It's exactly the same. I said, just while he was babbling through that interview, I thought I'd have a look up his Wikipedia page. He was a dog handler in the Armed Offenders Squad.
Yep.
1989 to 2002. Then he went to work in Iraq. Everybody knows that he was a mercenary. Can't tell anybody if he shot anybody, but there were, and this is news, there were casualties on both sides, Pat. Did you know that?
Yeah.
About Iraq? And it all comes back to one particular book. He is named in Nikki Hager's book, Dirty Politics.
I thought you were going to say the Bible, but that's good.
He like just a multi-talented dirtbag. Also voted against marriage amendment bill, allowing same-sex couples to marry. Just a dumbass conservative dirtbag. Another part of that interview that we're obviously not going to play because we could play the whole fucking thing.
Yeah, it's 30 minutes.
They're focusing all of their resource on this prison that they're expanding, right? They're not spreading the load. They're ignoring all the evidence that, hey, maybe it's better to have people serving sentences in their community to rehabilitate them, all of that. No. He might as well just roll it out as this prison is New Zealand's next university. Because that's what it is. He is going to concentrate all of these people in one place, and he cannot answer the question of, does putting people in prison increase gang recruitment? The man does not understand the mechanics of how gangs work. He doesn't know what leads to people joining them. He doesn't know the factors of what keeps people there, and he has no way of knowing how to get people out of gangs. It comes back to the most simple adage of know your enemy. Like there's nothing there. There's nothing there that is going to minimize the gangs at all. He's talking about, as aggravating sentences. That's going to make people think about joining the gangs. If you're at a point where you're considering joining a gang, you don't pro and con this shit.
Yeah.
You don't think, well, what if I get caught? If you join a gang and you know what gangs are, it is when I get caught.
Mm.
A lot of the guys that join gangs, they want to get caught. You move up in the gang if you do crime. You get more prestige if you go to prison. These guys will go to prison for something that they haven't done to earn credit with the gang. They don't fucking care about prison. He doesn't understand that. He's got the mind of a dog handler still. And a dog handler is, I'll follow my dog.
Yeah, I thought when you were going to say he has to know who his enemy is, I thought you were going to say his mouth, but you didn't for some reason.
Oh, absolutely. And look, it's like he's been standing in the wings, just off camera, just off side of stage, and watched every interview that Luxon has done, and gone, I can do exactly this.
I can do talk.
And he does it even worse. And that is our Minister of Police and Minister of Corrections, and that is terrifying.
The other thing when you started talking that I was reminded of was this quote. For people who are listening to the audio podcast, better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to speak and remove all doubt. So yes, there you go. Look, it's going to look, I mean, I know you all know this, but it's going to be a rough 2.5 years. Might only be 2 years if Winston gets his way when he leaves his deputy chairship. We had those the three former coalition partners last week saying it won't. All three of them said it won't last the full 3 years. But yeah, it's a tough one. It's a rough one actually. We'll see what happens. Is there anything you want to get into the chat about? Anything in there?
Yeah, a couple of things. Still talk. Okay, I put that one up. I'm sick of hearing poor gangs. You've spelt poor wrong, by the way. Poor motorcycle gangs. Look, they're destroying communities and our kids with crime behavior and hate crime. Look, facts don't lie. We're not debating that. We're not sitting here going, gangs are great. Gangs are bad. Our argument here is this government, for all of their tough on crime talk, don't know how to combat the gangs.
They don't have the solution.
You have to come in early so people feel like gangs aren't their only option.
Yeah.
You have to make sure that people are educated enough, healthy enough, have a home life good enough that they don't look at the gangs as an option.
Yep.
You have an option to remove a major revenue stream from gangs, and that was drugs, and we fucked that up.
Yep.
And the right did not see the opportunity that was sitting there on right on their fucking doorstep to increase the government's tax take and take away a major revenue stream for the gangs, and probably one of the only way that the rank and file New Zealand citizen has contact with the gangs is when people need to buy weed, because they'll interact with a gang, and then they don't understand that sending gang members to prison isn't even a road bump for these people. So we're going to charge them harder, and we're going to make sure that they can't wear their gang patches, which would never actually manage to define what a fucking gang patch is. It's all smoke and mirrors. So if you don't like the gangs, awesome. We're on the same page. You want to talk about facts? These guys do not know how to combat gangs. That's it.
We could place a little wager. I like that one. Poor gangs. Are those plumbers? The poor gangs. I predict that by the end of this term in this government, gangs will be far worse in our society than before.
Oh, the other, we've mentioned this before. You know, these guys are really cruising on the fact that there's more gang members than ever before.
Maybe.
And they are basing that off the fact that we now know how many gang members there are because they've decided to count them, whereas there never was those numbers. So on a graph, that looks like the gang members have massively increased. No, it's just that people went out and went, well, let's find out how many gang members we have.
Yeah.
On a lighter note.
Oh, okay.
We asked what gang Jack Tame would be in.
Yep.
We've got some answers.
Oh, cool. Sorry, Jack.
But
Beige
Power.
That's very funny.
I got to say, it's probably my personal favorite. The Press Gang.
Yeah, all right, got that.
Jack Tame of the Nice Young Chaps.
Nice Young Chaps, okay.
The Mormons. all good options.
I like the beige gang because it
Beige Power.
Beige Power. That makes me think of 1980s cricket uniforms, and they've already got it. So it's not a patch, but that means if that's the beige gang and they're wearing those beige shirts from the 1980s, are they going to be forced to take those off?
Hey.
Let's see.
Charles also had an excellent comment. This should have been a question. Jack should have asked him this. When you were a cop, would you have accepted this pay offer?
Yes.
That would have been a devastating question.
Yeah. But you know what he would have said?
Yeah.
He would have said, yeah, of course.
Oh, I'd be happy to get it because my rent will be cheap and I can buy more bananas at the supermarket.
All right, guys. Hey, been a great show tonight. Thank you for joining us. We are getting within cooey of 1,000 live viewers. We are getting within
cooey. Oh, yeah. 803.
Yeah. Because remember, you guys who are watching us on YouTube, you only see a portion. There's also people right now watching us on Twitter and on Facebook and on Twitch, and we get a combination of them all. So we're within cooey of 1,000 live viewers. I reckon
this is our big push. We want eyeballs and ears for the budget. Like the budget has always been a big focus of ours for this year.
True. That's in 2 weeks, eh? 30th or something? 31st?
2 weeks. 2 weeks, and we can find out what Nicola Willis has slapped a band-aid on and decided is a plan.
Brother Monk has just reminded me as well. What is our number? Oh, yeah, we're only... Okay. We have a really good ratio of people who are subscribed to people who watch. Some channels, 98% of people who watch their videos aren't subscribed. That's out there. Ours is about 1/3 of people who watch our videos aren't subscribed. It's actually a really good number. But if that third decided to subscribe, we're just about to tick over 8,000. We're 7,956 as I'm looking at the counter. If you're watching right now and you haven't subscribed to our channel, it'd be really, really, really lovely if you did. And also hit the notification bell so you know when things drop and things come out. Oh, look at that. Already just had two, just right now we had 2 new ones. So we're only 41, it was 42, 41 away from 8,000, which would be nice. We did say we want to try and get to 10,000 by the end of June, I think. The subscribers have slowed down a little bit. It was gone from 1,000 a month to about 500 a month. So we might not hit that, but yeah, if you're a watcher, whether you watch us in the clip form or whether you watch the whole show or you watch it on demand or whatever, and you're not watching us on YouTube, you can still subscribe to us there because more content goes up on YouTube than anywhere else. So yeah, there's a little pitch to see if we can get to 8,000 by tomorrow. We're only 38 away now. Seven. Can I bring this across here? Maybe we could just do this, Chewie. Maybe we could just sit here until we see this go up.
We're not ending the screen until we end up at 10,000.
You reckon? 10,000? No, not 10,000. How about just 8,000? We need 38 people. We need 38 people to sign up. Oh, there goes one there. Oh, hey. What are we up to? Hey. This is too slow.
How many trolls out there are going, I'm going to unsubscribe and just fuck up your metric?
Yeah, that's going to happen, isn't it? You watch it go down now to 58 and then down to 52. Okay, one more and we'll leave. I want to leave now. This is a stupid idea. But if you're if you haven't subscribed, if you're the 1/3 of people who enjoy our videos, sometimes you haven't subscribed, just subscribe, hit that bell, and then you'll know when our stuff's coming up as well. I'm about to click off it. I'm looking for one more. Hey! That's the number we'll go for. 79
content.
That's the number we're going for. All right, guys. We will catch you tomorrow night from 9 p.m. For another edition of Big Hero News. Thank you for tonight's good show. Lots of people around. It was lots of fun, actually. Thank you for the chats. Thank you for the super chats. If you've signed up to our Patreon over the weekend, thank you. We'll do a new billboard tomorrow night. And if you want to support what we do, if you enjoyed the content and you think that we are worth a little bit of investment, then you head to patreon.com/Big Hairy News. All right. That's us, team. Love you to bits. We'll catch you tomorrow night from 9 p.m. Hooroo.